She hits another brutal forehand and Coco Gauff can barely react. The ball flies past her. The crowd goes silent for a second, and in that exact moment, Aryna Sabalenka doesn't just win the Miami Open. She sends a message to the entire tennis world, and if you stay with me, I'm going to explain why this victory might be the moment women's tennis officially changed direction in 2026. Because this is not just about one match, this is about dominance, pressure, and a rivalry that is about to explode. The final score says 6-2, 4-6, 6-3, but that does not tell you the real story, because what happened on that court was a psychological battle as much as a physical one. Aryna Sabalenka walked into Miami with something very few players ever carry: momentum mixed with confidence. She had already conquered Indian Wells, and now she had the chance to complete what players call the sunshine double. That phrase sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest achievements in tennis, winning back-to-back WTA 1000 events under completely different conditions, different opponents, and extreme pressure. And on the other side of the net was Coco Gauff, the home favorite, the crowd behind her, the energy electric, and let's be honest, many people believe this was her moment to stop Sabalenka, but from the very first games, something felt different. Sabalenka was not just hitting hard, she was controlling everything. Her serve was precise, her ground strokes were relentless, and her body language told you everything. She was not here to survive, she was here to dominate. The first set ended 6-2, and it looked almost too easy. Now here is where things get interesting, because champions are not defined by how they win easy sets, they are defined by what happens when the match turns, and it did turn. Gauff came back in the second set. She adjusted her positioning, she started absorbing the pace instead of fighting it, and suddenly Sabalenka was being tested. You could feel the tension, every rally getting longer, every point heavier, and for a moment it looked like the match was slipping away from Sabalenka. Gauff takes the second set 4-6, and now we are heading into a decider, and this is where most matches are truly won or lost, because in that third set, it is no longer about tactics alone, it is about nerve, and this is where Sabalenka showed why she is world number one. She did not panic, she did not rush, she recalibrated. Her serve became even more aggressive, her shot selection sharper, and most importantly, she trusted her power when it mattered most. The final set 6-3 may look controlled, but inside those games were moments where everything could have gone wrong, and yet she held her ground. That is the difference between a great player and a dominant one. Now let's step back for a second, because this win is bigger than Miami. This is the sunshine double. Winning both Indian Wells and the Miami Open in the same season puts you in a very elite category, and Sabalenka just joined that conversation in the most convincing way possible. But here is where the story takes another turn, because this victory also ties her with someone she has been compared to constantly: Iga Swiatek. Both players now have 11 WTA 1000 titles. Let that sink in for a second. Sabalenka has officially caught up, and when you look at the list of players who have dominated this level, there is only one name ahead of them: Serena Williams. That is the level we are talking about now. Here is the real question, and I want you to think about this carefully, because this is where things get controversial. Has Sabalenka already overtaken Swiatek as the most dominant player in the world right now? Because rankings tell one story, but form tells another. Sabalenka is playing her best tennis right now. There is no debate about that. Her confidence is sky high, her power game is working, and she is winning the biggest matches. Meanwhile, Swiatek is in a very different situation. She is still one of the best players in the world, no doubt about that, but her current ranking position in the race is not where you would expect, and if the season ended today, she would not even qualify for the WTA Finals. That is shocking. Now, before anyone overreacts, this is not panic time for Swiatek. She has proven again and again that she can bounce back, and she still leads Sabalenka when it comes to Grand Slam title 6 compared to 4. That is a big difference, but here is the dangerous part: momentum in tennis is everything, and right now, Sabalenka has it all: confidence, rhythm, belief, and when a player reaches that level, they become extremely hard to stop. Now let's talk about what could happen next, because this is where things get really exciting. There are still 3 Grand Slams left this season, and if Sabalenka continues playing like this, it is not unrealistic to imagine her winning more, maybe even all 3. Yes, that sounds bold, but look at her level right now. If she does that, she would jump ahead of Swiatek in Grand Slam titles, and suddenly the entire narrative of women's tennis changes. But tennis is never that simple. Every tournament brings new challenges, new conditions, new pressure, and players like Swiatek are not going to just step aside. She will respond. That is what great champions do. Now let's go back to Coco Gauff for a moment, because even in defeat, there is a story here. She pushed Sabalenka harder than most players have this month. She adjusted, she fought back, and she showed resilience, but there is still a gap, and closing that gap is going to be her biggest challenge moving forward, because against players like Sabalenka, small mistakes become big problems. Now I want to hear your opinion on this, because this is where the conversation gets really interesting. Do you think Sabalenka is now the most dominant player in women's tennis? Or do you still believe Swiatek will take back control later this season? Let me know what you think, because this rivalry is far from over. Now here is something else that many People are not talking about enough consistency. Winning one big tournament is impressive, winning two back-to-back is elite, but maintaining that level over months, over surfaces, over pressure, that is what defines legends, and Sabalenka is starting to show signs of that. Her game is no longer just about power, it is evolving. She is making smarter decisions, managing points better, and controlling matches instead of just reacting. That is a scary combination for the rest of the tour. Now let's not forget what is coming next, the clay season, and this is where things could shift again, because clay has traditionally been a surface where Swiatek thrives, especially at the French Open. So if Sabalenka wants to truly take over the sport, she needs to prove herself there as well. That is the next test, and it is a big one. Before that, we have the Stuttgart Open, another key event where both players could potentially clash again, and if that happens, the stakes will be even higher, because now it is not just about winning a title, it is about sending a message who is really number one and who is chasing right now. Sabalenka is leading that race, but tennis seasons are long, unpredictable, and brutal. 1 month can change everything, and that is why this story is far from finished. But what we witnessed in Miami was not just a victory, it was a statement that Aryna Sabalenka is not just competing, she is dominating, and if she continues on this path, we could be looking at a season that people will talk about for years, because moments like this do not happen often. They define eras, and maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of a new one. Short outro about Lareum. This is Lareum, where tennis is not just news, it is a story, and the story is only getting started. And just take a moment to really think about what we've just witnessed, because this was not just another final, this was a statement that could define the entire 2026 season. Aryna Sabalenka did not just win the Miami Open, she completed one of the toughest achievements in tennis, and she did it with authority, with confidence, and with a level that right now feels almost untouchable. But here is the bigger picture. This is not where the story ends, this is where it begins, because the pressure is now on every single top player, especially Iga Swiatek, because the gap is closing fast, and momentum in tennis can flip an entire season in just a few weeks. And then there is Coco Gauff, who may have lost this final, but showed enough fight to remind everyone that she is not going anywhere. She is learning, evolving, and getting closer to breaking through at this level again. So now everything shifts to what comes next. The clay season, the French Open, and the battles that will decide who truly controls this era of women's tennis. And I want you to be part of this conversation, because this is where real tennis fans come alive. Tell me this honestly, if Sabalenka continues like this, do you see anyone stopping her this season? Or do you believe Swiatek will rise again and take back control? Drop your thoughts below, because this rivalry is heating up and every opinion matters. If you enjoy deep tennis stories, real analysis, and content that goes beyond just scores, this is exactly where you want to be, because here we break down the game, the mindset, and the moments that truly matter. This is Lareum, and trust me, the biggest stories in tennis are only just getting started. And just take a moment to really think about what we've just witnessed, because this was not just another final, this was a statement that could define the entire 2026 season. Aryna Sabalenka did not just win the Miami Open, she completed one of the toughest achievements in tennis, and she did it with authority, with confidence, and with a level that right now feels almost untouchable. But here is the bigger picture. This is not where the story ends, this is where it begins, because the pressure is now on every single top player, especially